Welcome to Ramp. We're really glad that you're here. This is the employee training session. So we're going to go over a couple different things about using your accounts today. We're first going to talk about how to accept your invite if you haven't done so yet. And then we're going to talk about how to change some of your settings. And then we'll talk about the different types of cards and funds that we have on Ramp and how you can request those funds. And then we'll talk about your transactions, how you can flag things or dispute things. And finally, we'll talk about reimbursements and how you request those. So first things first, if you have not accepted your invitation to Ramp, you'll need to do so. If you can't find the invite, check your inbox for an email either from communications@ramp.com or even just search ramp.com in your inbox and it'll probably come up. Or you could search join XYZ company on Ramp. Either way, you need to find this email and you need to click the yellow-green button that says accept invite because you can't do anything in your account until you've accepted that invitation. Okay, switching over to our account. I'm down here in the gray tab on the left. I'm in settings at the bottom, and I've just clicked on this first little box that says personal settings. So this is where we can set up all of our settings together. In the profile section, we can click edit profile and change new details such as our phone number, our email address, anything else. I also highly recommend you can add it here or you can click this right here. But I highly recommend adding your personal email address. This will just help with receipt collection so you don't always have to submit a photo of your receipt or forward it. This will be automatic forwarding from any transactions that Ramp is able to automatically match the receipts to. So definitely recommend adding your personal email there and turning that on. An example of this is if you have an Uber account and you use your personal email for your Uber account, which I do, but then you might use your Ramp card for a travel card to the airport or something like that for a work trip or a team offsite, and you don't want to have to just forward that receipt or take a screenshot, anything like that. This will save a couple seconds here and there of forwarding it for you. So highly recommend turning that on and adding your personal email. Next, we're going to hop to banking. This is where you can add your personal bank account. This will be used for reimbursement requests, so paying those out every time you submit a reimbursement request, which we'll go over in a few minutes. Once that's approved, the funds are going to be pulled from the company's linked bank account and sent to your bank account, which you'll add right here via ACH payment. So definitely recommend adding that account if you plan on submitting reimbursement requests. Security, this is where you can change your password if you need to. And then finally, in notifications, this is where you can turn on and off different notifications that you either want to receive or maybe you don't want to receive them. You can set this up right here. Okay, so that's all in settings, personal settings. Great. Next, we're going to be going to My Ramp. And in this My Ramp tab, this is mainly where you'll be working out of, really whenever you're doing anything in the account. First thing I want to point out is right here, if you had any transactions that were missing either receipts or memos, they would show up here. And to make it super easy for you, you can just submit the receipt or submit the memo right here. So let's say this Airbnb transaction was missing its receipt or missing its memo. It would show up right here. I could type in the memo, which is just a little blurb about why you made the transaction, or I could just drag and drop in the receipt and be done. But in my fake account, we're all caught up today. Now, next thing I want to talk about is cards and funds. I'm going to click this button right here at the top right corner that says request funds. On Ramp, you'll have physical cards and virtual cards. You'll only have one physical card. So it doesn't matter if you are the CEO, if you've been there for 20 years, if you've been there for 1 month, you're only going to have one physical Ramp card. So one Ramp card you can actually hold in your hands. So if you already have it, which in this case I do, I'm not going to be requesting another one because I'll only have that one physical card. That's great for any in-person purchases. So if you're traveling and you're at the airport and you're buying a coffee, that's what you would use. Or if you are getting a taxi or a cab, that's what you would use. Or maybe you're taking a customer out to lunch, you would use that physical card. On the physical card, you would have different funds. And so funds are different ways that you can spend. And when you use your physical card, the transactions, they will pull from the different funds. So in that example, let's say I have a customer lunch. I probably would have a fund for customer meals or something like that, where those funds would be pulled from when I use my physical card, when I put the card down and actually pay the bill at the restaurant. Another example, let's say I'm going to Miami for a team offsite. I would probably have a fund for that team offsite, or maybe Charlotte's travel fund, or Charlotte's Miami trip, whatever you want to call it. And I would put everything like the hotel on that card, the flight on that card, any transportation, they would all be pulled from that fund for travel. But I can use my physical card at any of those points. So at the airport, buying a taxi, anything like that. Virtual cards are great for any online or virtual spend. So virtual cards are great for things that are like vendor specific cards. So if you pay your Zoom subscription every month, or if you pay your Amazon bill, those would be great use cases for virtual cards. Other things like a DoorDash card, or maybe you have an Amazon specific card or an Uber specific card. Those would all be great for virtual cards. So let's request one together. I'm going to click virtual card. And let's say that we are on the marketing team and we're running different growth and social media experiments on Facebook. So let's say we are requesting a Facebook ads card. So again, this is an online purchase. I am purchasing these cards online. Let's say I get 10,000 US dollars we'll stick with every month to use different growth and social experiments and campaigns on Facebook ads. So we'll say that maybe it's $10,000. We'll just give a breakdown. Of course, when you're requesting a real card, you want to be as specific as possible so your team knows exactly how and why you are spending in these ways. So let's say Facebook ad spend. So in the request details, we want to be as specific as possible. So we know we're getting $10,000 a week. This is a made up number, but let's say that each day we're doing $2,000 of ad spend. So we're doing 5 days of the week. Okay, great. Of course, in your real examples, you would want to be as descriptive as possible. Now, little insider info, you can probably skip this advanced section. It's more likely than not that your team is going to have their own kind of preferences and rules set up here. And basically, they'll have you submit receipts or memos or accounting categories, but they'll set all of that up. So admins, they will be doing that. You likely won't have to do anything here. But if you do, your team will let you know what's needed from you here. But more likely than not, they'll be choosing who approves your transactions, if you need to submit receipts, all of that. So I'm just going to say skip this for today, unless your team tells you otherwise. So great, I've now requested that card and you can see it's pending right here. Okay, and I can see all my other cards here as well. I can click view all and I can see all of my cards and any funds that I have as well. So this offsite program, that's an example of a fund. Cool. Great. Now I'm going to walk through how to submit reimbursement requests. So I'm going to click create reimbursement. And a couple of different options here, 3 different options really. If I have the receipt, I can just drag and drop it in. Or I can click that and then I can do an out-of-pocket reimbursement request. So this would be if you go to a cash-only restaurant and you have to pay in cash, or if you forget your ramp card and you have to use your personal card, this is where you would set this up. You would just fill out all the details. So you would enter the merchant name, the dollar amount, the currency, the date you made the transaction. And then from here, again, another little description of why you're making the reimbursement request. So was it a client lunch? Was it a team offsite activity? Whatever it may be. Then you would drag and drop in the receipt and then click submit. Mileage, this is for gas mileage, so driving to work or work events. The difference with this, of course, is there's a distance, which I think this is pretty cool, but if you put in the start location and put in the destination, Ramp will calculate that distance from point A to point B, populate it into the reimbursement request. You'll fill out the rest of the details and then click submit. So that's how you submit a reimbursement request. Your managers or admins will then approve it, and then, like I said, you'll be paid out via ACH from the company's linked bank account to your own personal linked bank account, which is why in the settings, I recommend adding your personal bank account if you plan on submitting reimbursement requests. You can get paid out. Okay, employees, we are almost at the end here. I just want to show a few other things that you might need to be aware of. So this is what some of our messaging from Ramp will look like, and you can submit receipts in a few different ways. One is just in your Ramp platform, how I mentioned, if your transaction is missing a receipt or memo, right when you log in that My Ramp section, you could just submit it. But you can also text it in. So after you make a transaction, you'll be texted from Ramp, and you can just quickly text your receipt back. You'll also notice over here, the receipt matching technology is pretty amazing. And even though this receipt looks like it's maybe been run over by a car, it was still matched. So even if your receipt's not in the best shape, Ramp is able to match it. You can also email them, so you'll also be notified via email after you make a transaction, and you can just either submit the receipt or type in the memo. And then finally, the Ramp app. I highly recommend downloading the Ramp app. That makes it super easy to check on all of your funds, all of your limits, all of your cards, as well as submit receipts and memos when you're out and about. So definitely recommend downloading the Ramp app. Last few things I want to note is if you need to dispute a transaction or flag it as accidental, you can do so. You can just go in and click into the transaction, and you'll click options and choose the reason for the dispute. So maybe you canceled the purchase. Maybe it's a duplicate charge and you've already paid it. Maybe it's something you don't recognize and it's a fraudulent charge. You can do all of that. And then again, if you meant to put something on your personal card, but you put it on your Ramp card, you can mark it as accidental, like right here in the example, and then you can pay back your company. I actually had to do that the other day. I accidentally put an Uber charge on my Ramp card that was meant to be on my personal card, and so I was able to easily mark it as accidental and then pay back Ramp. And it took 5 seconds, so super easy to fix that. I'm going to mention this, but your team, your admins and managers will likely walk you through this if it's something that you need to do. But coding your transactions, if you've never heard that before, it just means choosing the accounting category on every transaction. Your team might have you do this. I will also say that your team will likely have rules in place for all of your transactions. So even if you have to do this, the rules might beat you to having to do it yourself. But basically, if you hear the words code your transaction, or if a transaction requires an accounting category, that's all it is just choosing the accounting category on every transaction. So gonna point out that you might have to do this, but we'll leave the actual instructions to your team because they might require it, they might not. It depends on how your team has your account set up. Okay. Last thing is just what some communications from Ramp might look like. You might receive notifications if you're reaching the limit on a card or a fund. You might receive notifications if anything has been flagged as out of policy. Maybe you're spending in ways you're not supposed to. You might receive notifications if your card limit increases or decreases or anything like that. Maybe a new category or merchant has been blocked on a card. You'll receive notifications about that. And then approvals. If you submitted a card request for a virtual card or a fund, you'll be notified if that has been approved. And if a reimbursement request has been approved, you'll be notified as well. So just gonna quickly recap what I talked about today. Again, employees, thanks so much for being here. In settings, you can change all of your profile settings. You can add your personal bank account. You can change your password, and then choose all of the notifications you either want to receive or don't receive. And that's all in settings, personal settings. And then in My Ramp, this is where you can see kind of an overview of your page. In expenses, you can see all of your expenses. And let's just click in here to this Sweetgreen transaction really quick. If I click options, I can either dispute the transaction, so I can mark it as incorrect. I can say I canceled it. I can say I don't recognize this. And any of these options, I'll click in. It'll prompt me to take some other steps. So maybe it's terminating the card, maybe it's speaking to my finance team. But again, to get there, I just clicked into the transaction, clicked options, and then I can dispute the transaction. Or I can mark it as accidental if I meant to put this on my personal card. Okay, great. Last thing, again, is submitting a reimbursement request. Just go up here to create reimbursement and then fill out that reimbursement request. Click submit, and then you'll be paid out via ACH payment to your personal linked bank account. So employees, that's pretty much how you'll be using Ramp. It's super straightforward to just submit your receipts and memos, request cards and funds, submit reimbursement requests, and make sure you're managing all of your transactions. So I hope this was helpful as you're getting set up. And if you want to check out our other trainings, go to ramp.com/training and you can view them there. Okay, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you being here. Bye.